So this is competency number 5, and we're going to be looking at the Chafee program as a policy and the history of it, and then some of the improvements that could be made on that policy. So I'm going to bring up our PowerPoint. Don't look, don't look. Okay, so of course we're talking about the John H. Chafee Foster Care Independence Program. The history of the policy. So before the 1980s, young people in foster care received little formal preparation, if any, for the transition into adulthood. This changed following the release of research on the long-term outcomes of foster care alumni that raised concern over the extensive vulnerabilities and lower educational and professional attainment that they had. In response to that research and the ensuing public concern, Congress passed the I can't say that word, but you can see it on the screen. That first one, Budget Reconciliation Act of 1985. Woo! Which included the Independent Living Initiative. The law provided $45 million in federal funds to states under Title, I don't know Roman numerals. Title something of Social Security Act of 1935 to help adolescents develop skills needed for independent living. In 1993, the funding for the Independent Living Initiative was increased to $70 million and reauthorized indefinitely, which allowed states to engage in long-term planning of their programs. Up until the 1993, they had to redo their funding every single year. So imagine trying to plan something where you don't know what the future entails. We know what that is right now. So moving on. See here. The Independent Living Initiative gave states great flexibility in the kinds of services they could provide young people in foster care. Some of those services are basic services outlined in the law included outreach programs to attract eligible youth, life skills training, education and employment assistance, counseling, case management, and to help developing a written transitional living independent living plan. Program funds could not, however, be used for room and board at that time. In the late 1990s, many testimonies of young people advocating for better services led Congress to consider further policy changes by creating the Foster Care Independence Act of 1999. This created the John H. Chafee Independence Care Foster Care Independence Program. I am not reading this video. We are just going to keep going. This change granted states more funding and greater flexibility in providing independent living services, doubling federal fund to $140 million a year. In 2001, the title that I still can't pronounce because I don't know Roman numerals, it was amended again to create the Chafee Educational and Training Voucher Program, which allows Congress to appropriate $60 million annually for the education and training vouchers of up to $5,000 per year for each youth up to the age of 23. The next federal change to address the complex needs of this population was the Fostering Connections to Success and Increasing Adoptions Act of 2008. Again, the testimony and advocacy efforts of youth informed the creation of this new standard. In 2018, the title was amended to focus more supports more clearly on youth who spend time in foster care at the age of 14 or older without regard to whether they ultimately age out of care. The John H. Chafee policy offered important opportunities for expanding activities in states and communities to help young people transitioning from foster care. When children age out of foster care, they lack the stability of a family and the resources that come with permanency. They are sorely in need of quality services and supports to assist with their education, physical and mental health, employment, housing, and personal support needs. This policy positively impacts the future of older children in foster care by exponentially expanding their resources. Woo! Next slide. So, this is a list of all the services that they provide. The program authorizes funds to be used for providing assistance in obtaining a high school diploma, career exploration, training in daily living skills, training in budgeting and financial management skills, and preventative health activities, among other purposes. States must meet certain requirements, including that no more than 30% of Chafee funds are used for room and board expenses. The Chafee Education and Training Voucher provides funding for Chafee eligible youth to attend institutions of higher education. Youth can receive up to $5,000 annually up to 5 years until they reach the age of 26. The Chafee law directs HHS to collect outcome and other information for current and former foster youth, and HHS established the National Youth in Transition Database for this purpose, the NYTD. So they do evaluation, they collect all this data to make sure that things like the outcomes of these children and whether the program is doing something. Along with the foster care and Chafee programs, other federal programs are intended to help youth currently and formerly in foster care make this transition to adulthood. Federal law authorizes funding for states and local jurisdictions to provide workforce support and housing to older foster youth and youth emancipating from care. Further, beginning in January 1st, 2014, eligible young people who were in foster care at the age of 18 are covered under a mandatory Medicaid pathway until 26. Youth in foster care or recently emancipated youth are also specifically eligible for certain educational supports. Wow, this whole slide is all about the services that the program has for the kids, and you can see there is a long list and it's very thorough. This last one is all about the issues that I have found in the ILP program and some solutions that maybe will help if they were fleshed out more. So, a limitation of implementation. Wow, I am struggling. A limitation of implementation is that the Act gives states total discretion to whose providers for their independent living activities. The states get to choose who they're going to use. While giving the states authority over programs allows them to take ownership of the idea and the issue, it takes away the continuity of their learning plans for the kids. The kids aren't guaranteed the same opportunities in one state or in the same county or in the same area or the same class that they would be in another. Also, if kids move to a different state, then the education in the classes will be affected by the different learning plans. This lack of a standardized learning plan also affects the youth if they have to move to a different county, whether due to a different placement or finding housing elsewhere. We know our older kids, they go from group home to group home, and the group homes are often not close to each other. And if a child becomes a disruption or something happens and there's only one group home in their normal area, They have to find another group home, which is typically like 2 hours away, like in Atlanta. That's a whole other area, and all that stuff they had learned, it's different than what the other classes are doing. So it's hard to get back on track, and you've missed lessons. Let's see. Also, during the summer, many of the local classes, the ILP classes, are not held and are only given in major cities like Atlanta. For many students, this means they miss a whole summer of classes. And sometimes where transportation is given, it's still a very long drive just to attend an hour-long class. As mentioned above, the John H. Chafee Act allows states to choose who their providers are. However, states usually only choose one provider, taking away the child's choice of whom to use. Also, there is only one ILP class per district, so children only have one option of class to attend. The independent living classes are only held once a month, so if a child is sick, then they miss a whole month of lessons and they can't make it up. This is a personal experience actually for my CASA child. During the summer, they didn't have a local class, and the only option was in Atlanta. That was a 2-hour drive for her, and her teacher was, was very understanding and just told her, you don't have to come during the summer, which was great because she didn't have to do that ride and that drive. But she still missed that whole summer of classes, which is supposed to prepare her for her future. Let's see here. A policy change that is needed to effectively serve the young adults is having a national-wide ILP curriculum to set the standard for these young adults who are constantly being moved across the state to different group homes. This will keep their educational gap in check. So the second problem is the ILP housing. A policy that affects the young adults is that when they are transitioning, when they are in the transitioning period of the independent living classes, they are given the option of having an apartment, which is great. Housing, heck yeah, are you kidding me? However, when these young adults are given into an apartment, they are placed there without any guidance. The apartments are designated for the ILP program, and since there is no formal policy that the child must stay in their local area, they are placed around in different cities. So imagine if you are a teenager in the ILP program in rural Georgia. There are no ILP apartments there. You have to pick up your whole life and go to wherever those apartments are. And a lot of time that means quitting their current job, leaving their friends and the normal surroundings where they finally have established themselves, are getting roots, and they have to rip it all up just for an apartment. Let's see. I believe that the ILP housing, so the solution of what I was thinking is being flexible, not having designated ILP apartments, but just saying, hey, an apartment will, be flexible and let them stay in their current area. One great idea that I had was having, if you wanted to have ILP housing, a unit, have it be like a 3-step program, like a dormitory. So the children who have never lived on their own and they've never taken care of their own apartments should have an experimental period that would help them transition. So step 1 housing would include a roommate and regular checks from an on-site employee, an on-campus employee. That's like an RA. So this is like college. And step 2 would be having your own room on campus and like an apartment. And then step 3 would be having an off-campus apartment. That way they can work towards getting to where they want to go, but they have that transitional period of taking care of a home. So that's the whole competency right there. The ILP program is a great program that has a ton of resources in it. But there's going to be problems, just like with every program. And I think that the inconsistent learning that the children have and the lack of ILP housing in their areas and having to move and not really being prepared to take care of an apartment is a lot of stress on a kid, especially if they don't have a support group and a family to depend on. So I think that a transitional living, a 3-step program would really help. So that's everything. I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna end the video.